Hello and welcome to the Brilliant People podcast by executive search firm Assertitude. On this show, we look at the ways leadership is evolving in our world and share stories from the most brilliant private equity executives, CEOs, thinkers, and doers defining our times. I'm Linnea Jongnelius, Global Head of Marketing and Strategy at Assertitude, and today I'm joined by Farhan Siddiqi, an operating partner at BayPine, a private equity firm with an unrelenting focus on modernization that invests in core economy, market-leading businesses. Over the last 20 years, Farhan effected some of the most visible digital transformations in the consumer space. He served as Chief Digital Officer of Ahold Delhaize, where he cracked the code on digital change for its 20 brands. It's no surprise that when Ahold acquired FreshDirect, they turned to Farhan to step in as interim CEO and pivot the company from survival mode to growth mode. Farhan also held digital leadership positions with global icons like McDonald's, Bank of America, and Target. Farhan, it's so great to have you. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here, Linnea.
Excellent. Farhan, there is immense power in knowing what motivates you in life and what motivates you as a leader. And if there's one thing I've gotten to know about you, it's that transformation of any kind drives you. Why is this an exciting lane for you?
I think at the heart of it is the thrill of a challenge, solving a complex problem, solving a new puzzle is what excites me. And the potential of what it can transform into and what you can unlock. So that's exciting. There's this perpetual desire for learning too. If you think about it, as we age, there are not really too many truly new experiences that we have. Most of them are just an instantiation of something we've already done before. So this is one way of keeping it interesting for me and avoiding from life going into autopilot. When you think about transformations are big challenges, which each of them, they present an opportunity for you to evolve, adapt, and unlock a little bit of professional and personal growth. It's almost like turning the unfamiliar into the familiar friend that you never really thought you needed and watch it open doors to new realms that you had not dreamt about being possible.
I love the way that you think about that, particularly because our mission at Assertitude is to unleash human potential, which is exactly what it sounds like you're talking about and how you think about what you're able to do once you get into a business and drive the change that's needed there. Of course, today you're with a firm where digital transformation is fundamental to your value creation plans. You joined BayPine as the firm first debuted its fund in 2020. I imagine this was a bit of an adjustment from your prior CEO and CDO roles with Ahold. And we have many in the audience that may be thinking of a similar pivot. What was the biggest change or learning curve as you made that transition into private equity?
Indeed. Switching over to private equity brings upon its own dynamics and challenges. But first of all, because I had led so many different transformations and made transitions across different industries and companies, I really drew upon that experience. It was somewhat similar. What I would like to call out is, first of all, there's more common than uncommon between public and private. Obviously, there are the usual things of financial structures, leverage structures, the role of M&A in driving core growth, a finite hold period, and somewhat involved investors and boards that are different from public companies. But how I think about it is, for the most part, running a good company is a running good company. The fundamentals are still the same of how you set a strategy, how you bring in the rigor to execution, how you lead teams. So there is a lot to draw upon of what you do in the public world and apply it to the private world. But as a leader, to your question, if I were to think about what are the 2 or 3 things to really keep in mind as you make these transitions, I can probably think of 3 areas that are worth calling out. The first one would be sector. When you're in operating roles, you're primarily going deep within your own sector. While you draw inspiration from a lot of the best companies across the world, you're learning from them, you're getting inspired and trying to bring the innovation into the sector you're trying to transform. For the most part, you're going deep in your own sector. There might be some exceptions. You can think about conglomerates. There's a lot of companies that operate in the intersection of different industries. Could be consumer financial services, could be financial services, healthcare, could be healthcare consumer. But still, the problem you're focused on are still within those sectors. So private equity gives you the luxury of going deep into multiple sectors at the same time, which is very stimulating. So that is one thing that's a big positive. The second one I would like to focus on, which is probably the biggest transition and challenge that people face, is your role and the control you have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In a way, think of you go from being a driver to the GPS. Okay. Both are very crucial, but they're very different. And the good part is you still are entering the end destination of the GPS. You're involved in that part, but you really have to lead through others. So I think here, again, where I was fortunate enough to be on boards before, they give you this training that, okay, your role is a governance. You're helping the management teams, but you're not the driver and executor, especially in public companies. You drop on that. But something like Ahold, which was a holding company of 20 brands, you have to lead through others. You're setting the direction, you're enabling the management teams, but these are independent 20 running companies. So having that experience helped me make this transition better. And the third one I would call out is scale. And it might not be applicable to everybody, but I went from working for Fortune 50 companies to middle market. So the scale you operate at, the challenges and the problems you solve are very different. Your starting points are very different. So when you work for large companies, the fundamentals and the foundations are normally there. And what you're trying to do is work on intermediate problems and advanced problems that are going to drive you and give you that edge to be the leader in that space. In middle market companies, sometimes you have to come and build a foundation. It's a very different skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The foundations are not there. And then the resources are also very interesting, both in terms of capital and the talent will be very different. So there's a lot of adaptation you have to do to be able to navigate these dimensions. And I think one advice that probably does not fit into this is big success is going to be your role is to make the CEO, management team, and the company successful. So you're leading through them, you're enabling them, and you have to build trust. And that trust is like fine wine. It has to age, it takes time, and you really have to enable them to actually put the points on the board where this relationship works.
I love all these great analogies, the driver and the GPS and the fine wine. I'm going to start to use those. Question for you. Having had experience in both roles now, both as a CEO and as an operating partner, I'd love to kind of take what you were just saying and take it a little bit further, which is what's your perspective on what makes for a really solid operating partner CEO relationship? And how can operating partners build trust and partner with CEOs effectively?
I think that is the most important aspect. And a lot of private equity groups are still trying to figure that out. The role of the operating partner, how involved you're going to be, and how do you enable the team. I see that operating partner's role is really to what I said before. Your job is to, once the company is acquired, you are the partner to the CEO and the management teams in helping, first of all, create the strategy, the value creation plan, right? You develop it with them, even though you might have done some work in the diligence, but it needs to be a management plan that they can get behind. They need to feel like it is their plan. So you can be a thought partner. Then to execute on that, you pretty much have to help them think through the talent. Where are the gaps in the talent of the strategy you're setting? Do they have the capabilities in place? And you use your network of resources that you bring, whether it's just direct talent, whether it's partners that you work with, pretty much everything. It could be from search firms to leadership firms to consulting firms to data analytics companies across the whole spectrum. You bring in the toolbox, okay, and help them basically guide on that journey and deliver against that plan. And you can bring a lot of rigor, but I think it has to be a very respectful partnership that, okay, they are in the driver's seat, you're an enabler, you're a coach and available partner. And sometimes if they need you to step in to take a function, are you willing to do that based on your expertise? And can you basically support them in the interim, right? I find that as a good fill for the missing the control. If the opportunity presents itself, take a operating role within a portfolio company for a short period to actually enable them.
I just got out of the Berkshire AGM last weekend, and one of the things, right, that Charlie Munger always talks about is looking at things in reverse. So I want to also think about this in the opposite direction, which is where do operating partners stumble? And are there any watch outs you would offer or relationships that you've seen not work as well? And sort of what have you picked up from those?
I think it's the dynamics, okay? The challenge, and rightfully so. If you think about if you're sitting in their seat, whenever I was in the CEO seat or even a functional seat, you do like the governance, but in the end, you want to be in charge. You don't want someone else always looking over your shoulder. So like having an involved board, I really doubt any CEO truly enjoys that, right? So
people love it. No, just kidding.
Yeah. So I think respecting that and letting them also do the pull, right? Where you give them guidance, and sometimes where you can misstep is that actually you can be more directive than is required, right? But ideally, spending the time building the relationship, knowing that, okay, it's going to take time, and the very clear goal that your job is to make them successful goes a long way. And communicate with them and spend the time and the energy, just like any relationship, it takes time to build.
Yep.
So if you don't spend the time and just focus on the numbers and your value creation plan and delivering that, and don't take the time to invest in the relationship, not only with the CEO, but with the rest of the management team, it basically sets you back on the agenda, basically.
Yeah, spend the time. Now, let's dive into your exciting work of taking companies on tech transformations. When you get brought into a deal, first off, how early do you tend to get involved? And second of all, how do you go about developing an agenda and prioritizing those projects that are really going to pay off most in the whole period?
That's the $1 million question, or probably, multi-million-dollar question.
Yep.
Obviously, we do get involved from the get-go. Once a deal is starting to be close to something that we're really interested in, we get involved in the diligence phase. And we are evaluating, okay, what the potential is going to be of like, okay, where can we drive meaningful value in terms of a growth plan? How I always approach it is I don't see the digital agenda separate from the company agenda. You start with the company strategy, value creation plan. You look for which customers they're serving. What is their value proposition? How are you going to deliver that value proposition? This tends to be mostly the commercial aspects of the business. And then there are the operational aspects of the business. What activities do they engage in? How do they basically do the operational factors to deliver against this value proposition? And if you look through across all of there's tons of opportunity to do it better and make it smarter. So this is like, okay, where your data and analytics and automation, intelligent automation, whether it's algorithmic or robotic, comes in to modernize the functions you're doing. You can unlock a lot on the value proposition. You might discover that you may be able to do something different because now it's digital, right? Or you might be able to introduce new channels. The core growth focus of the company and making it smarter and make it operationally smarter gives you where the digital agenda and the focus needs to be. And then underneath it all, you're thinking about the economic model. You're thinking about the capabilities you need to build, right? Whether it's technology systems, whether it's talent that you need to bring in, whether it's ways of working and changing the culture and bringing in new methodologies they're not used to. All of this is really part of the value creation plan. And then within that, you have to really prioritize in a very deliberate way, because you'll always come up with a lot. You have to focus. So pretty much you do a proper business case on any key initiative or a strategic initiative. It has to stand on its own with a level of rigor, and you do prioritization, and that becomes your operating plan. You really look 3 years out or 4 years out, whatever your long period is. That should drive your 1-year plan. The 1-year plan should basically give you your quarterly plan, the objectives, goals, measures, tactics. So that rigor helps you basically execute on that.
Yeah. In the diligence phase, is there one or two most important questions that our listeners could ask to help to identify and prioritize digital initiatives for their companies?
It is a strategy question. And what I would say is don't try to do a templatized version, because, okay, if you could just give a template to any company and say, okay, this is your strategy, it will probably not work. You really have to understand the business model, and when you understand the economic model, the business model, that will help answer okay, where you need to really focus on and where the biggest potential is. And again, you have to draw, it has to be about the company, the industry, where it's on its maturity. And if you can draw parallels to other industries and other companies that have done it, that'll give you the gap analysis, like, okay, where you are, what is the art of the possible. That'll give you basically the possibility of what can be done, because you have seen proof points in other industries or other companies. So you can draw upon those examples to really figure out, okay, what you can do with this. But think big. Originally, when you look at a company, this is your time to really think about a growth strategy, think big, and draw inspiration from a broader canvas.
Excellent. And tech disruption, as you were hinting at, is as much about execution as it is a mindset. How do you go about shifting the culture of the portfolio companies that you work with so that they embrace change and become more tech forward?
Yeah, it's like an education. So almost think of it as an infusion. Okay. And it means infusion of the concepts. You have to lead the way with basically showing the art of the possible. You have to time to be the evangelist and show them why it will matter. Examples matter. Infusion means infusion of talent. Okay. So one of the biggest things that you have to do as a leader and a change agent is you have to be a bridge builder. There's a lot of knowledge that every company you go into, you have to take the time to learn about, okay, how that works. But there's an aspect that you bring to the table. If you don't bridge the gap, there's going to always be a disconnect. So spending the time to get to know them, learn them, and then basically build the credibility to be able to explain what digital can do for them. What has always worked for me is kind of visualize it and show them like, okay, any use case you're trying to do, you have to kind of visualize it and show what it would look like in the future, right? Then the ingredients matter. So there's an education and evangelization piece, like you get buy-in from people and they feel like it's their plan too.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course it's the talent, bringing the right skill sets, bringing the right partners that can help them on that journey. It's bringing in the right solutions also that actually enable that. So you're pulling all these levers to be able to kind of not only show them what the art of the possible is, but like, how are you going to get there? And, adding all these little spices to it.
So what's in it for them? Ask the why questions and sort of visualize what success looks like.
The other thing is don't expect everybody to get behind the entire agenda at any point in time. They won't get it all. So very important is while you paint the bigger vision and picture where you're going, pick a few critical ones that you can have proof point with and they have meaningful value. Don't get caught up in the shiny objects and the focusing on innovation first. Go and change a commercial function because that'll get buy-in with all the key business leaders and the CEO that you have driven meaningful value. And then you earn the liberty to say, let's go differentiate and innovate somewhere else, but focus on commercial aspects first and get some proof points there.
Makes a lot of sense. I'd like to understand how you apply experience from earlier in your career when you were chief digital officer of global organizations like Ahold and McDonald's. What learnings can middle market companies take from the digital best practices of those types of large global organizations and put in place?
I think storytelling helps, first of all. And if you can draw parallels to, okay, when you walked into those places, what the mindset was. Believe me, you faced it at a much larger and a much complex scale and with much more resistance in these larger organizations. So being able to tell the story of when you went there, what it was like, and then, okay, how you basically focus on why you picked the things you did, okay, how you brought people along, how you got things done, sharing some of the things that did not work, where you actually fell and what did not work is equally important. And then the best way for anybody to get behind your agenda or believe you is if you actually have real good proof points. When you have proof points that they can actually go and experience, right? That helps them get on board quite fast. That's why McDonald's is a really beautiful one because like no matter who you talk to, they have somehow experienced what's happened at McDonald's. So that works in our favor.
Exactly. Going back to the tech piece, a lot of leaders know that AI can be very powerful, whether it's automating decisions or automating tasks and so on and so forth. Could you share an application or two, right? Let's get into the proof points here of ways you've meaningfully deployed AI.
Right now, one of the portfolio companies we have is one of the largest dermatology platforms in the US, and it's both medical dermatology and it has cosmetics and other aspects to it too. So we've looked at use cases that help providers be more productive. So something that will be in the diagnostic aspects. Diagnostics are a big focus area. So these are tools that the providers can use. And if you think about the initial exams are very visual, they look at their skin and they can detect whether it's an eczema to all the way to like that's something that needs a biopsy. There's a lot of innovation happening in this diagnostic tools with the AI and like really powerful smartphone cameras. So we are piloting 2 or 3 of these diagnostic imaging solutions. And they all have different business models, slightly different technologies. So we're in the early stage of testing these solutions. There could be decision tools, which are built upon these that the doctors can use. And very quickly, it gives you a database of what diseases might be, whether they are like really skin conditions, whether there are a medicine reaction or something based on a epidemic based on travel. So you're giving them decision tools that are helping with these. The other couple of ones I can think of that we're experimenting with are in scribing, digital scribe, which is the doctors take basically notes with the patients. So normally, if you think about it, it goes from voice, you're putting it in pen, and it's getting structured into a basically electronic medical records. So there are solutions that are coming out that we're piloting now that can turn on a microphone, and it has a lot of complexities about patients, accents, everything that you have with voice commerce. But we're working with actually automating that whole flow that it becomes a structured, accurate patient record very, very quickly. These are a couple of examples that we're working with.
Yeah, those are great examples. And I think one of the key words you mentioned there, which I think is sort of what I'm hearing from everybody, is experimenting. So testing a lot, kind of finding the use cases and making sure you're trialing things across the areas that make a lot of sense and where there's repetition that AI can come in and meaningfully change things.
Yeah.
There's a big human element to digital transformations. Nothing happens without the right team, as you've indicated. So let's talk about leadership within the context of middle market and tech-enabled companies. What are the core qualities you look for in a CEO in that kind of environment?
Yeah, when I think of CEOs and actually all senior leaders, I hold certain qualities in very high esteem. I pretty much have said this forever that, okay, as a senior leader, you got to demonstrate these things. But for a CEO, they really, really become even more heightened. First one is strategic thinking. Strategic thinking or critical thinking, or in the end, it is problem solving. We are solving problems. Either they're strategic problems or tactical or operational conundrums or problems, but they are basically problem solving. As a CEO, the additional thing you have to do is not only think about solving the right problems, you have to think about the right questions of what problems should I be thinking about that I need to solve. That is the responsibility of the CEO and other leaders too. Prioritization becomes very important within this. So to me, like, okay, where are you going to put your focus and your team's focus and resources becomes very important, but it starts with like, okay, hey, are you thinking the long view? Are you addressing the right issues? So that is number one. Second thing is driven for results. When I look for CEOs, having a track record of delivering results multiple times, that can be attributed to you, not someone else. I mean, we know that, okay, they're results driven, but a lot of people are in the bus who claim credit for that. So you have to really sift through and figure out, okay, what did you drive? And not being a one-hit wonder. Okay, having delivered those results multiple times and having a track record is very important. Third one, probably the most important of all these, is team leadership. Because in the end, how you deliver those results, how you basically, charge people against a mission, it's all about how you lead the people. And the culture of a company is set by the top two layers, the CEO and the management team, how they interact with each other, how they make decisions, the speed of decisions, whether they're collaborative or combative, right? The way they operate, it's going to set the culture for the entire company because people observe that and behave that way. And that sets a company apart, whether it's going to be an efficient company or it's going to lag behind. So team leadership is third, but probably most important. Fourth one, financial acumen are very essential. They have to know the details, the business model, the unit economics, and paying a very, very sharp lens on that. And in private equity, I would call out industry expertise becomes very important, but having worked for a prior sponsored backed asset gives you a gold star. Because first of all, you'll be dealing with a very involved investor or a board that are much more involved than a public company. Okay, so they're involved on a monthly basis. Second thing is understanding the role of M&A in driving growth. The frequency is very high, especially in middle market and private equity. Like roll-ups is very much part of the strategy and getting synergies. I don't see that going away. Understanding of leverage structures is very important. How do you work within those capital structures? When you have that, I think you'll be well set.
And is there anything you commonly seek across the board as you build out the top 25 and go one level deeper?
Yes. In terms of this, I mean, like I used to say to people, be a smart router, don't be a dumb router. So I do not appreciate people who just like take information to the top and pass it to the next level. What processing are you doing? Every leader has a responsibility to actually add value from a thinking perspective and results perspective, and they do. I think the next level and the next 25, technical and domain expertise become very, very important. The CEO is okay overseeing everything else, but then having good expertise, like a CFO needs to run a good finance function, right? Okay, technology. So over here, I'll emphasize, because we are about digital transformation, do not underestimate the technical aspects of a digital leader. Hire someone who's done it before. And I still see a lot of companies just thinking of, let's take the next rising star and put digital under them, right? You would never do that with a CFO or even a sales leader. Digital is complicated. It has a lot of breadth, but it also has a lot of depth. Hire someone who actually understands the domain, because that's going to be the difference between what great looks like versus like, okay, just, passing by.
Exactly. And being that you have a digital overlay to everything that you do, are there any new skills that are hitting your scorecard today that maybe weren't before?
I wouldn't say that yet, okay? Because like the people thinking artificial intelligence happened like, okay, after ChatGPT came out. No, it's been there around for 50 years, okay? Now it's the time where the applications are coming out and the broad world is, talking about it or misrepresenting it, because like you don't hear about a program or a software anymore. Everything is AI, okay? It's not. So that has been there. Robotics have been around forever. Data and analytics, the focus on that, focus on experience, focus on marketing, focus on product. I think these very much truly hold. I don't think there's anything emerging that would say like, okay, now it's essential to actually add this to the skill.
Sounds like it's more about driving change, like usual. The agility, pivoting, being open to new insights that come your way and kind of changing and continuing to prioritize.
I think the cultural change is the hardest part. The biggest hurdle you'll face is, look, everybody loves the idea of change, okay, including the C team and the CEO, until you try to say that, okay, you got to change your ways too. And that's where you face resistance. And basically getting them on board and having them move along is the hardest part. Strategy is easy. Execution is hard. And the companies that do it right is they execute at the right pace, okay, and they differentiate themselves. There's no company that's not claiming to be doing some form of digital transformation. Why are there such few success stories? Because, people still not approaching the right way or making it a priority.
Yep. As we start to wrap things up, let's look toward the future. What digital advancements excite you the most about their potential to evolve and improve the working world?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little provocative here, because like any point in time, you have two or three technologies that everybody kind of like just chases and thinks, okay, that's it, and that's going to change the world. We talk about a lot about machines becoming human. I don't think we talk about humans becoming more machines. So what fascinates me is like all the advancements that are happening in the human augmentation part. So if you think about even Neuralink or human brain interfaces, what that could do for, how we could advance as humans and maybe not even become mutant-like, but like the learning process and how that could change. Now, if you think about the interesting dance that can happen between technology and humans, and how we work, where we work, or why we work, could become really interesting.
That's great. And how do you keep your own digital skills sharp?
I am a junkie. I'll like basically consume content in every format as much as possible. So try to stay up to date. Am I always up to date? Possibly not. But I try to read a lot and ingest as much content as I can. And I do tend to travel a lot. So the flying time and travel times are perfect time to just like multitask and ingest as much as you want. I really believe in this day and age, you have to choose to be ignorant, right? Okay, the information there, it'll come to you, it'll get pushed to you. It's up to you whether you want to, ingest it or not.
Yep. Any specific sources that you go to or you frequently visit?
On like the tech forums, like see what's out there. Flipboard, is a starting point for me. So like based on what I choose, see what content comes up, dive deeper into there. But the tech companies put a lot of content out there. You have online education platforms. You can pretty much, if you really take the time, you can learn anything on edX and Coursera. So these are available. It's just a matter of carving the time out, but there's no shortage of sources where you can go to.
Yep. And I have to ask, what is the one piece of technology that you can't live without?
It has to be the phone.
Yeah, maybe that was an obvious question.
Yeah, like it's like almost a body part.
Yeah.
You almost feel like incomplete the moment, okay, that device is not attached to you, because that's your interface into the whole digital world.
Yeah. Okay, less obvious questions. Are there any parts of your life that you leave tech-free or anything that you do to balance out the time we all spend on our devices and our screens?
I sleep tech-free. There's no chip implanted, and I put my phone away.
Yet.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, regular workouts, your phone is with you because you're either listening to a podcast or learning something or music. Yoga is another one, basically, where you actually put your phone in the locker room and disconnect from it.
At Assertitude, our purpose is to unleash human potential. So in each episode, we'd like to define brilliance in a few ways. I'm going to hit you with a quick lightning round. If you could please fill in the blanks. Purpose is
the guiding force that helps you drive meaningful impact and fuels personal and professional fulfillment.
Leadership is
the fine art of herding a bunch of cats and convincing them and inspiring and engaging them to chase after the same laser pointer, right? It's about unlocking the full potential of each individual and making all these individuals into a well-oiled purring machine and having fun while you're doing it.
Back to the great analogies. Success is
when other people talk about it and you don't. Okay. When you meet someone on the street and you can actually, without talking about what you did, and you share moments and they experience a delight because of something that you were a part of, that is success. It's about leaving things in a much better place than you found them.
Brilliant leaders,
they're trustworthy, they're authentic, they're empathetic, they're visionary, mission-driven, and they leave an impact behind that even the most stubborn spreadsheet cannot quantify.
Digital leaders are
forward-thinking, they're change agents, they're constant learners, they're bridge builders. Absolutely, They have to bridge the build. The from, the to, it's their responsibility. And then there have to be domain experts, to the point I was making earlier.
I perform at my best when?
I perform best when there's a big, hairy challenge. I'm inspired, I'm empowered, and I can surround myself with people who can get equally dedicated and excited about the big goal and the big mission and not about the petty politics of the day-to-day.
Thank you to Farhan Siddiqi, operating partner at BayPine and a leader in the digital transformation arena, for joining us on today's episode. And thanks to you, our listeners. That's it for this episode of the Brilliant People Podcast. I'm Linnea Jungnelius. If you found this conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts, and follow Assertitude on LinkedIn for the latest insights on how to lead, transform companies, and perform at your best. Until next time, stay brilliant at work and put your phones down. Or not. Totally your call.